Samantha Henderson looked out the kitchen window at her daughter Lily. The 8-year-old girl was laughing as she swung gently on her therapeutic swing. The sound of her daughter's laughter always made Samantha smile. It hadn't been easy for Lily. Born with cerebral palsy, she faced challenges that other kids didn't have to deal with. But she was a fighter, and her bright spirit shined through despite the difficulties. "She's doing so well with the new equipment," Greg said as he wrapped his arms around his wife from behind. He rested his chin on her shoulder as they both watched their daughter. "The physical therapist says she's making great progress," Samantha agreed. Moving here was the right choice. The Hendersons had moved to Oakwood Gardens 6 months ago. They chose this neighborhood carefully. It had good schools, friendly neighbors, and most importantly, enough space in the backyard for Lily's therapy equipment. Before buying the house, they had checked the HOA rules and even got written approval for the equipment. The backyard now had a therapeutic swing, balance boards, and various sensory toys. All of it was needed for Lily's daily therapy sessions. The equipment wasn't visible from the street, and Samantha had planted pretty bushes around it to make it look nice. Greg kissed Samantha's cheek before grabbing his lunch from the counter. "I should be home around 6. Don't forget we have dinner with the Johnsons tomorrow night." "I won't forget," Samantha promised. "Have a good day at work." After Greg left, Samantha went outside to join Lily. "How about we do some balance exercises before lunch?" Lily nodded eagerly. She loved her therapy sessions with her mom. They were working on the balance board when the doorbell rang. "Wait here. Sweetie, I'll be right back," Samantha said. When she opened the front door, she found a woman in her 50s standing there with a clipboard. Her hair was perfectly styled, and she wore an expensive-looking outfit. Her lips were pressed into a tight line. "Hello, I'm Patricia Donovan, the new HOA president," the woman said without smiling. "I need to speak with you about a violation on your property." Samantha frowned. "A violation? What kind of violation?" "The playground equipment in your backyard," Patricia said, looking past Samantha into the house. "Several neighbors have complained that it's an eyesore." "It's not playground equipment," Samantha explained. "It's therapy equipment for my daughter. She has cerebral palsy and needs it for her daily physical therapy." Patricia's expression didn't change. "Whatever it is, it violates our neighborhood aesthetic guidelines. Section 8, paragraph 3 clearly states that no recreational structures can be visible from neighboring properties." "But we got approval from the HOA board before we moved in," Samantha said. "I have it in writing, and it's not recreational, it's medical equipment." "I'm not aware of any such approval," Patricia said. "And regardless, as the new president, I'm enforcing the rules more strictly. The equipment needs to be removed within 7 days or you'll face a daily fine of $50. Samantha felt her face getting hot. "My daughter needs this equipment. It's essential for her therapy. And we definitely have approval. If you'll wait, I can show you the letter." "Rules are rules," Patricia said firmly. "If we make an exception, for you, everyone will want exceptions. 7 days, Mrs. Henderson." Just then, Lily called from the backyard. "Mom, are you coming back?" "In a minute, sweetie," Samantha called, trying to keep her voice calm. Patricia peered around Samantha to look into the backyard. "Is that your daughter? The one who supposedly needs all this equipment?" Samantha bristled at the word supposedly. "Yes, that's Lily. She has cerebral palsy, as I mentioned. The equipment is prescribed by her doctor and physical therapist. I'll need to see documentation of her condition," Patricia said, making a note on her clipboard. "Excuse me?" Samantha was shocked. "You have no right to my daughter's medical records. That's private information." "If you're claiming a medical necessity exemption, we need proof," Patricia insisted. "I'm not claiming anything," Samantha said, her patience wearing thin. "And I don't need to provide you with my child's private medical information. What I will provide is the approval letter we already received from the HOA board." Samantha went to get the letter from her office while Patricia waited at the door. When she returned with the document, Patricia barely glanced at it. "This was signed by the previous board," Patricia said dismissively. "The new board has different standards. I'll have to bring this up at our next meeting, but for now, the violation stands. Before Samantha could argue further, Greg's car pulled into the driveway. He had forgotten some files for a meeting and had come back to get them. Seeing the tense situation at the door, he hurried over. "Is everything okay?" he asked, looking between Samantha and Patricia. Samantha quickly explained the situation. Greg took the approval letter from Patricia's hands and read it carefully. "This clearly states that we have permission to install the therapy equipment," he said. "It's signed and dated, and there's no expiration date on the approval." "As I was explaining to your wife, the new board has different standards," Patricia repeated, "and I've received complaints from neighbors." "Which neighbors?" Greg asked. "We've spoken with everyone nearby, and they've all been supportive of Lily's needs." Patricia ignored the question. 7 days to remove the equipment, or the fines. Begin. She turned to leave, but then stopped and took out her phone. From the sidewalk, she began taking photos of their property. "What are you doing?" Samantha called out. "Documenting the violation," Patricia replied without looking up from her phone. After Patricia left, Greg and Samantha went back to the yard where Lily was still on her balance board, unaware of the trouble brewing. "What are we going to do?" Samantha asked quietly, so Lily wouldn't hear. "She needs this equipment." Greg put his arm around her shoulders. "We're not removing anything. We have the approval in writing, and what she's asking goes against the Americans with Disabilities Act. We'll fight this." That evening, after Lily went to bed, they researched their rights. The Fair Housing Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act both protected their right to make reasonable modifications to their property for Lily's disability. They felt better knowing the law was on their side. The next morning, Greg called 2 other HOA board members he had met at a neighborhood barbecue. Joe Barnes sounded uncomfortable on the phone. "Look, Greg, I understand your situation, but Patricia is really pushing for stricter enforcement of the rules. She won a lot of support by promising to increase property values by cleaning up the neighborhood." "This isn't about property values," Greg argued. "This is about my daughter's medical needs." "I get it, and personally, I think you should be able to keep the equipment," Joe said. "But Patricia has a lot of influence with the board right now. Maybe you could move the equipment to your garage or something?" "It wouldn't fit, and Lily needs outdoor space for her therapy," Greg explained. "Plus, we have written approval from the previous board." Joe sighed. "I'll talk to some of the other members, but I can't promise anything." The second board member, Marcia Williams, was more sympathetic. "Patricia is on a power trip," she said bluntly. "She's been going around the neighborhood with her clipboard, writing up people for the smallest things. But most people are too scared to stand up to her because she's friends with the mayor and several city council members." "So what do we do?" Greg asked. "Fight back," Marcia advised. "Get a lawyer if you need to. What she's doing isn't right, especially when it affects a child with medical needs." Later that day, Samantha was working in the front garden when she noticed Patricia slowly driving by their house. She stopped her car across the street and took more photos. Samantha stood up, brushed dirt from her hands, and walked toward Patricia's car. "Is there something else you need?" she asked. Patricia rolled down her window. "Just documenting that the violation is still present. It's been less than 24 hours since you gave us 7 days' notice," Samantha pointed out. "And we're not removing equipment that's medically necessary for our daughter." "We'll see about that," Patricia said, before driving away. That night, Samantha and Greg sat on their porch after Lily was asleep. "I never thought we'd have this kind of trouble here," Samantha said softly. "Everyone else has been so nice." Greg took her hand. "We won't let one mean-spirited person ruin this for us. This is our home, and Lily needs her therapy. We'll do whatever it takes to protect that." Little did they know that Patricia Donovan was just getting started, and the battle ahead would test their family in ways they never imagined. 3 days after Patricia's visit, the Hendersons received an official violation notice in their mailbox. The fine had increased from $50 to $100 per day. Greg immediately called their family lawyer, Steve Mason, who specialized in real estate and property issues. "This is completely illegal," Steve said after Greg explained the situation. "The Fair Housing Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act Both protect your right to have necessary medical equipment for your daughter. That's what we thought, Greg said, relieved to have his suspicions confirmed. I'll draft a formal letter citing the relevant laws, Steve promised. In the meantime, document everything. Take photos of the equipment, keep all communications with the HOA, and start a journal of every interaction with this Patricia person. That evening, Greg and Samantha sat at their kitchen table after Lily went to bed. They spread out papers and started documenting everything that had happened so far. I spoke with Dr. Miller today, Samantha said. She's writing a letter explaining why Lily needs the equipment for her daily therapy. Great, Greg nodded. Her physical therapist, Ben, is doing the same. With those letters, our HOA approval, and Steve's legal letter, Patricia will have to back off. But Patricia didn't back off. The next day, Samantha found a notice taped to their front door about their garbage cans being left out too long. The day after that, there was a violation for a garden hose not properly stored. Then came a notice about unauthorized wind chimes. This is ridiculous, Samantha fumed as she showed Greg the latest notice. Our wind chimes have been up since we moved in. No one has ever complained. She's targeting us, Greg said, trying to wear us down. A week later, Steve's legal letter was sent to the HOA board. Greg also emailed copies of Dr. Miller's and Ben's letters to all board members, explaining Lily's medical needs and why the equipment was necessary. 2 board members responded with sympathy. Marcia Williams called Samantha directly. I want you to know that I'm on your side, she said. What Patricia is doing isn't right, but she has a lot of influence with the other members. Why does everyone seem so afraid of her? Samantha asked. Her husband is Dr. Richard Donovan, the chief of surgery at Memorial Hospital. He treats most of the board members and their families. Plus, Patricia has a lot of connections with local businesses and politicians. People don't want to cross her. But this is about a child's medical needs, Samantha said, her voice breaking. Lily depends on that equipment. I know, Marcia said gently. Keep fighting. Some of us are trying to reason with her behind the scenes. That Friday, Greg had to leave for a 2-day business trip. He hated to go, especially with the situation so tense, but the meeting had been scheduled months ago and couldn't be moved. Call me if anything happens, he told Samantha as he kissed her goodbye. I mean anything at all. The first day passed quietly. Samantha and Lily spent the morning doing therapy exercises, then went to the grocery store. When they returned, Samantha noticed Patricia's car parked across the street, but the woman herself was nowhere to be seen. After lunch, while Lily was resting, Samantha heard voices in the backyard. She looked out the window and was shocked to see Patricia and 2 men walking around their yard, examining Lily's therapy equipment. Samantha rushed outside. What do you think you're doing? You're trespassing on private property. Patricia turned, not looking at all surprised to see Samantha. I'm conducting an official inspection as HOA president. You have no right to be in our yard, Samantha said, firmly. Please leave immediately or I'll call the police. We have every right to inspect properties for violations, Patricia argued. The 2 men with her looked uncomfortable. Not without permission or prior notice, Samantha countered. This is private property and you are trespassing. Leave now. Let's go, one of the men muttered to Patricia. She's right. We should have sent notice. Patricia shot him an angry look but turned to leave. This equipment is still in violation. The fines will continue to accrue. As soon as they were gone, Samantha called the police to report the trespassing. Then she called Greg. She was in our backyard? Greg was furious. With 2 strange men? She said they were doing an official inspection. One of them seemed to realize they were in the wrong, but Patricia acted like she owned the place. I'm coming home, Greg decided. I'll try to get on the first flight tomorrow morning. No, finish your meeting, Samantha said. The police are coming to take a report and I've already called Steve. He says we should file for a restraining order on Monday. After filing the police report, Samantha checked on Lily, who was still napping. The stress was starting to affect her daughter. Yesterday, Lily had asked if the mean lady would come back and take her swing away. The question broke Samantha's heart. The next morning, Samantha took Lily out to the backyard for her therapy. They were working on the balance board when Lily suddenly froze, staring at something over Samantha's shoulder. Samantha turned to see Patricia standing at their back fence watching them. She was holding her phone up, clearly taking photos or videos. "Stop filming my daughter right now," Samantha shouted, moving to block Lily from view. "I'm documenting the continued violation," Patricia called back. "You're harassing a disabled child," Samantha responded. "Leave us alone or I'll call the police again." Patricia lowered her phone but didn't leave. "The board has reviewed your so-called medical documentation and found it insufficient. The fines stand. Our lawyer will be contacting you," Samantha said, leading Lily back inside. The little girl was trembling. "Is the mean lady going to take my swing?" Lily asked again, her voice small. "No, sweetie," Samantha assured her, trying to hide her own worry. "Your equipment is staying right here. Daddy and I will make sure of it." When Greg returned that evening, Samantha told him about Patricia watching them from the fence. "This is getting out of hand," Greg said, pacing the living room. "It's affecting Lily now. She was afraid to go outside for her afternoon session." "Steve is filing for the restraining order first thing Monday morning," Samantha said. "And he's preparing a formal complaint against the HOA for harassment and discrimination." On Sunday, the Hendersons tried to have a normal family day. They worked in the garden together and had a picnic lunch in the backyard. Lily seemed to relax a bit, though she kept looking over at the fence. Monday morning, Greg took the day off work to meet with Steve. They filed the restraining order request and submitted the formal complaint against the HOA. Steve also sent a strongly worded letter to each board member individually, outlining the potential legal consequences of their actions. "This should get their attention," Steve said. "Discrimination lawsuits can be very expensive for HOAs, and their insurance might not cover it if they knowingly violated the law." For the next few days, things were quiet. Patricia's car didn't drive by, and there were no new violation notices. The Hendersons began to hope that the legal actions had worked. Then, on Thursday afternoon, Samantha took Lily to a doctor's appointment. They were gone for about 3 hours. When they returned home, Samantha immediately sensed something was wrong. The backyard gate was open. "Wait here, sweetie," she told Lily, leaving her in the car with the doors locked. Samantha hurried through the gate and stopped in shock. The backyard was empty. All of Lily's therapy equipment, the swing, the balance boards, the sensory toys, everything was gone. In their place was a single piece of paper taped to a tree. Samantha ripped it off with shaking hands. "Violation resolved," it read. "Fines stopped as of today." Samantha fell to her knees in the empty yard, clutching the paper as tears streamed down her face. Then she heard Lily calling from the car. "Mom, where's my swing?" Greg rushed home from work as soon as Samantha called him. He found his wife and daughter sitting at the kitchen table. Lily was crying softly while Samantha tried to comfort her. "It's all gone?" Greg asked, his voice tight with anger. Samantha nodded. "Everything. The swing, the balance boards, all the sensory tools. They took everything." Greg immediately called the police to report the theft. While they waited for officers to arrive, he tried to calm Lily down. "We'll get your equipment back, sweetie," he promised, though he wasn't sure how. When 2 police officers arrived, the Hendersons explained the situation. They showed the officers the written HOA approval for the equipment, the doctor's letters, and the violation resolved note left in their yard. "So this HOA president took medical equipment from your property without permission?" one officer asked, looking troubled. "Yes," Greg confirmed. "Equipment that's essential for our daughter's therapy." The officers took their statement and photographs of the empty backyard. They were just finishing up when a car pulled into the driveway next door. It was their neighbor, Frank Miller. "Hey, what's going on?" Frank asked, walking over when he saw the police. "Is everything okay?" "Someone stole Lily's therapy equipment from our backyard while we were at her doctor's appointment," Samantha explained. Frank looked surprised. "That's terrible, but wait. I think I might know something about this." The Hendersons and the police officers all turned to him. "There was a yard sale at the community center last weekend," Frank said. Patricia Donovan was selling a bunch of stuff she said belonged to the HOA. I remember seeing some equipment that looked like Lily's. A yard sale? Greg repeated in disbelief. Yeah, she called it a community fundraiser or something. Said they were selling unused community property to raise money for new landscaping at the entrance. The police officers exchanged glances. Ma'am, sir, would you like to add theft by deception to your report? One asked. Absolutely, Greg said firmly. As if on cue, Patricia's car drove slowly past their house. When she saw the police cars, she pulled over and got out. Is there a problem here? She asked, walking up with her clipboard. Yes, there's a problem, Greg said, stepping forward. You stole our daughter's medical equipment. Patricia's face showed no remorse. I removed abandoned playground equipment from community property after proper notice was given. This is private property, not community property, Samantha argued. And it wasn't abandoned. We were at a doctor's appointment. And it wasn't playground equipment, Greg added. It was medically necessary therapy equipment for our disabled daughter. One of the officers stepped forward. Ma'am, these homeowners have filed a theft report against you. They claim you removed medical equipment without permission and then sold it at a community yard sale. Patricia straightened her spine. As HOA president, I have the authority to remove violations after proper notice. It's in the bylaws. She pulled a document from her clipboard and handed it to the officer. The officer scanned it quickly. This gives you the right to issue fines and place liens, ma'am. It doesn't authorize you to enter private property and remove belongings. The equipment was in violation of our aesthetic guidelines, Patricia insisted. I gave them ample notice to remove it. Did you place the removed items in storage? The officer asked. Patricia hesitated. No, we sold them at a community fundraiser. So you took someone else's property without permission and sold it for profit? The officer clarified. It was for the HOA treasury, Patricia said, though she looked less confident now. Actually, Frank chimed in, my wife bought one of those sensory toys and she made the check out to Patricia directly, not the HOA. Patricia glared at Frank. You're mistaken. The second officer finished writing in his notebook. Ma'am, we're going to need you to come down to the station to answer some questions about this incident. This is ridiculous, Patricia protested. I was enforcing the rules. You can explain that at the station, the officer said firmly. The police escorted Patricia to their car. Lily tugged on her mother's sleeve. Mom, what about my therapy? She asked, her voice small. How will I do my exercises? Samantha hugged her daughter close. We'll figure something out, sweetie. I promise. After the police left with Patricia, Frank offered to help. My wife and I bought one of those sensory toys. We'll bring it back right away. And I think the Johnsons down the street bought the balance board. Thank you, Frank, Greg said gratefully. I had no idea what was going on, Frank admitted. Patricia told everyone it was unused community equipment. If we'd known it belonged to Lily, we never would have bought it. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood. By evening, 3 neighbors had returned items they'd purchased at the yard sale, but the most important piece, the therapeutic swing, was still missing. Carol from down the street says an older man bought it for his grandchildren, Samantha told Greg that night after Lily was asleep. She doesn't know his name, just that he wasn't from our neighborhood. Greg ran his hands through his hair in frustration. That swing was custom fitted for Lily's needs. It cost over $2,000. I know, Samantha sighed. And her physical therapist says the disruption to her routine could set her progress back significantly. The next morning, Greg called Steve to update him on what had happened. The lawyer was shocked. She actually took the equipment and sold it? Steve said in disbelief. That goes way beyond an HOA dispute. That's theft, conversion of property, maybe even fraud. We need to file an emergency injunction and get a court date as soon as possible. What about Lily's therapy in the meantime? Greg asked. I'll include a request for temporary equipment rental in our filing, Steve promised. The court should order the HOA to pay for it given the circumstances. Later that day, the police called to inform them that Patricia had been released, but was facing potential charges pending the district attorney's review. She had claimed that as HOA president, She had the authority to remove the violation, but admitted she hadn't placed the equipment in storage as required by the HOA's own bylaws. The next few days were hard on the Henderson family. Lily had to miss her regular therapy sessions at home. Instead, Samantha drove her to a physical therapy center across town, which meant taking time off work. Lily was upset and confused about why her equipment was gone, and her sleep was disturbed by nightmares. Greg focused his anger into action. He spoke with other HOA board members, most of whom were horrified when they heard the full story. Several admitted that Patricia had not consulted them before removing the equipment, and that she had deposited the money from the yard sale into her personal account, not the HOA treasury. On Friday afternoon, an emergency HOA meeting was called. Greg and Samantha attended, bringing Lily with them so the board could see the child affected by their president's actions. The meeting room at the community center was packed. Almost every homeowner in Oakwood Gardens had come to hear what was happening. Patricia sat at the front table with the other board members, her face stony. Board member Joe Barnes called the meeting to order. "We're here to address a serious situation involving actions taken by our HOA president, Patricia Donovan, against the Henderson family." Joe explained the situation for those who hadn't heard, including the fact that the Hendersons had proper approval for the equipment, that it was medically necessary for their daughter, and that Patricia had removed and sold it without board approval. "This is not what our HOA stands for," Joe said firmly. "We're here to maintain property values and community standards, not to harass families or steal medical equipment from disabled children." Several homeowners stood to speak, most expressing shock and disgust at Patricia's actions. Frank Miller described what he had seen at the yard sale. Marcia Williams confirmed that the board had never authorized the removal or sale of the equipment. Throughout it all, Patricia sat silently, her lips pressed into a thin line. Her husband, Dr. Richard Donovan, sat in the back of the room, his expression unreadable. Near the end of the meeting, Greg stood up to speak. "My family moved here because we thought it was a good community to raise our daughter. Most of you have proven us right with your support. But one person's cruelty has caused our daughter physical and emotional harm. We're asking for immediate action to remedy this situation." The board voted unanimously to remove Patricia as president and to issue a formal apology to the Henderson family. They also voted to use HOA funds to replace all of Lily's equipment and to cover the cost of her therapy sessions until the new equipment could be installed. As people began to leave the meeting, Dr. Richard Donovan approached the Hendersons. His face was drawn and tired. "I want to apologize for my wife's actions," he said quietly. "I had no idea she had gone this far. I knew she was strict about rules, but this—" He shook his head, looking both embarrassed and deeply troubled. "Did you know she sold Lily's equipment?" Samantha asked. "No," he said firmly. "I found out today, just like everyone else. I'm a doctor. My oath is to help people, especially children. I would never have allowed this if I had known." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a check. "This is to cover the cost of replacing the equipment. It's not enough to make up for what happened, but I hope it helps." Greg hesitated, then took the check. "Thank you, but this doesn't change what Patricia did." "I know, Doctor." The Monday after the HOA meeting, Samantha was making breakfast when her phone rang. It was Laura Adams, a reporter from the local newspaper. "Mrs. Henderson? I've heard about what happened with your daughter's therapy equipment. Would you be willing to share your story?" Samantha hesitated. She and Greg had been focused on helping Lily and getting her equipment replaced. They hadn't thought about going public with their story. "Can I call you back? I need to discuss this with my husband." When Greg came downstairs, Samantha told him about the call. A newspaper story might help prevent this from happening to other families. Greg said thoughtfully. "What do you think?" "I think we should do it," Samantha decided. "But only if Lily is okay with it." They explained it to Lily in simple terms, and she agreed. "Maybe the mean lady will learn to be nice to kids like me," she said. Samantha called Laura back and arranged for an interview that afternoon. Laura came to their home and spent 2 hours talking with the family. She took photos of Lily doing her therapy exercises at the center across town. and of the empty backyard where her equipment had been. 2 days later, their story appeared on the front page of the local newspaper. HOA president sells disabled child's therapy equipment. The article included quotes from several neighbors, details about Lily's medical needs, and information about Patricia's actions. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The newspaper's website was flooded with comments supporting the Henderson family. Local TV stations picked up the story. By Wednesday afternoon, the Hendersons' phone was ringing constantly with calls from people wanting to help. Carol Johnson, who owned a local physical therapy practice, called to offer free therapy sessions for Lily until her equipment could be replaced. "I was so upset when I read what happened," she told Samantha. "No child should have their therapy disrupted like that." A group of neighbors organized a fundraiser to help replace Lily's equipment. Frank Miller and his wife set up an online donation page that quickly raised thousands of dollars. Local businesses donated supplies and services. On Thursday morning, a truck pulled up in front of the Henderson house. The driver and his helper unloaded several large boxes onto the driveway. "What's all this?" Greg asked, coming outside. "Delivery for Lily Henderson," the driver said, checking his clipboard. "From Miller's Medical Supply." Greg was confused. "We didn't order anything yet." "It's already paid for," the driver explained. "Says here it was ordered by Dr. Richard Donovan." Greg helped bring the boxes inside. When they opened them, they found brand new therapy equipment, a therapeutic swing, balance boards, and various sensory tools. Everything was top of the line, even better than what Lily had before. There was a note with the delivery. "I hope this helps Lily continue her therapy without further disruption. I am truly sorry for what happened. Richard Donovan, MD." Lily was thrilled. "Can we set it up now, Daddy? Please?" "Not yet, sweetie," Greg said gently. "We need to get proper installation for the swing, but soon, I promise." That afternoon, a local construction company called. The owner had read their story and wanted to install Lily's equipment for free. "My nephew has cerebral palsy too," he explained. "I know how important this therapy is." The owner, Bill Cooper, came by that evening to look at the backyard and the new equipment. "We can have this installed by Saturday," he promised, "and we'll make it look nice too with some landscaping around it." Meanwhile, Patricia Donovan was facing serious consequences. The district attorney had decided to press charges for theft and conversion of property. The story in the newspaper had brought forward more neighbors who had bought items at the yard sale and made checks out directly to Patricia, not the HOA. The HOA board was conducting its own investigation. They discovered that Patricia had deposited over $3,000 from the yard sale into her personal account. When confronted, she claimed it was a temporary measure until she could transfer the funds to the HOA account. "But you never mentioned the sale or the money at our last board meeting," Joe Barnes pointed out. "And that was 3 weeks ago." Patricia had no good answer for that. On Friday morning, while Samantha was taking Lily to her therapy session, a moving truck pulled up at the Donovan house. Curious neighbors watched as men loaded furniture in boxes. Richard Donovan supervised the loading, his face grim. When Samantha and Lily returned home, their neighbor Ellen came over with the news. "Richard Donovan is moving out," she reported. "Carol from down the street talked to him. He said he couldn't stay with Patricia after what she did. He's filing for divorce." "Divorce?" Samantha was shocked. "Because of this?" "Apparently it wasn't just this," Ellen said. "Carol said Richard told her that Patricia has been becoming more controlling and mean-spirited over the past year. The incident with Lily was the last straw for him. He said he couldn't reconcile his oath as a doctor with staying married to someone who would knowingly harm a disabled child." Greg shook his head. "I almost feel sorry for her." "I don't," Ellen said bluntly. "She brought this on herself." Saturday morning arrived bright and sunny. Bill Cooper and his crew came early to install Lily's new equipment. They worked quickly and efficiently. By noon, everything was set up and ready to use. "What do you think, Lily?" Bill asked as he showed her the newly installed swing. Lily's face lit up with joy. "It's perfect. Can I try it now?" "Of course you can," Bill smiled. "It's all yours." Lily spent the afternoon happily using her new equipment, with Samantha guiding her through her therapy routines. Greg took photos to send to her doctor and physical therapist. As they worked in the backyard, neighbors stopped by to see the new setup and check on Lily. Everyone was amazed by the outpouring of support from the community. "I never expected anything like this," Samantha told Ellen as they watched Lily on her swing. "When Patricia took the equipment, I was devastated. I thought we'd have to move." "This neighborhood looks after its own," Ellen said firmly. "One bad apple doesn't spoil the whole bunch." That evening, the Hendersons hosted a small gathering in their backyard to thank everyone who had helped them. Bill Cooper and his crew came. Frank and his wife brought food. Carol Johnson from the Physical Therapy Center stopped by. Even Laura Adams from the newspaper was invited. As they all enjoyed food and drinks, Greg raised his glass for a toast. "To good neighbors and a caring community. You all turned a terrible situation into something positive for our family, especially for Lily. We can't thank you enough." Frank raised his glass too. "And to Lily, the bravest little girl we know." Everyone cheered as Lily grinned shyly. Later, after the guests had gone and Lily was in bed, Greg and Samantha sat on their porch swing. "It's hard to believe how much has happened in just 2 weeks," Samantha said. "I know," Greg agreed. "From the worst experience to one of the best." "Do you think Patricia will actually go to jail?" Samantha asked. "I don't know. Steve says it's possible, but not likely for a first offense. She'll probably get probation and have to pay restitution." "And what about her and Richard?" Greg shrugged. "Ellen says he's staying with a friend until he finds an apartment. The divorce papers have already been filed." They sat in silence for a moment, thinking about how one person's actions had caused so much pain, but had also revealed the true strength of their community. "Whatever happens to Patricia," Samantha said finally, "I hope she learns something from all this." "Me too," Greg said, "but I'm more focused on us moving forward. Lily has her equipment back better than before. The neighbors have been amazing, and we know now that this is where we belong." Samantha leaned her head on his shoulder. "Yes, this is home." Inside the house, Lily slept peacefully, no longer afraid of the mean lady taking away her swing. Tomorrow would be another day of therapy and progress, surrounded by people who cared. Monday morning brought new developments in the ongoing situation. The Hendersons received 2 important deliveries. The first was a large envelope from their lawyer, Steve Mason. The second was a smaller envelope hand-delivered by a courier. Greg opened Steve's envelope first. Inside was a copy of the formal lawsuit they had filed against Patricia Donovan and the HOA. Steve had included a note explaining that the court date was set for 3 weeks from now. He was confident they had a strong case. "What's in the other envelope?" Samantha asked as she packed Lily's lunch for school. Greg opened it and pulled out a single sheet of paper. As he read it, his eyebrows rose in surprise. "It's a settlement offer from Patricia's lawyer," he said. "She wants to settle out of court." Samantha put down the sandwich she was making. "Really? What does it say?" "She's offering to pay for all the equipment, our legal fees, and an additional $5,000 for emotional distress," Greg summarized. "In exchange, we drop the lawsuit and sign a non-disclosure agreement." "A non-disclosure agreement? She doesn't want people to know what she did?" "Apparently not," Greg said. "Too late for that, though. It's already been in the newspaper." "What do you think we should do?" Samantha asked. Greg thought for a moment. "Let's call Steve and see what he recommends." After dropping Lily off at school, they called Steve from Greg's home office. "This offer isn't bad financially," Steve said after they explained the situation, "but I think we can do better, especially with the public support you have. And I don't like the non-disclosure agreement. That only protects Patricia, not you." "So you think we should reject it?" Greg asked. "Not reject, counter," Steve suggested. "I'll draft a counteroffer that includes everything in her offer plus a public apology and no non-disclosure agreement. Also, I think we should ask for a donation to a charity that supports children with disabilities." "I like that idea," Samantha said. "This isn't just about us and Lily. It's about making sure this doesn't happen to other families. Steve promised to send over the counteroffer that afternoon. In the meantime, Greg and Samantha went about their day. Greg worked from home while Samantha went to her part-time job at the library. Around noon, Greg's phone rang. It was Richard Donovan. "Mr. Henderson, I hope I'm not disturbing you," Richard said. His voice sounded tired. "Not at all," Greg replied, surprised by the call. "I wanted to let you know that I've officially filed for divorce from Patricia," Richard said. "I know that's not really your concern, but I thought you should know that I couldn't stay married to someone who would do what she did to your daughter." "I appreciate you telling me," Greg said. "And thank you again for the equipment. Lily loves it." "I'm glad," Richard said. "It was the least I could do. I also wanted to ask, would it be possible for me to come by sometime and apologize to Lily in person? I know I wasn't directly responsible, but I feel terrible about what happened." Greg hesitated. "Let me talk to Samantha and Lily about that. I'll let you know." "Of course," Richard agreed. "Take all the time you need." That evening, the family discussed Richard's request over dinner. "What do you think, Lily?" Samantha asked gently. "Dr. Donovan would like to come say sorry to you about what happened with your equipment." Lily thought about it as she pushed peas around her plate. "Is he nice? Not mean like his wife?" "He seems very nice," Greg said. "He's the one who bought you the new equipment." "Okay," Lily decided. "He can come say sorry." Greg called Richard and invited him to stop by the next evening. Richard arrived promptly at 6 carrying a gift bag. "Thank you for allowing me to come," he said as Greg welcomed him in. Lily was in the living room with Samantha. She looked at Richard curiously as he entered. "Lily, this is Dr. Donovan." Greg introduced them. Richard knelt down to Lily's level. "Hello, Lily. I'm very sorry about what happened to your therapy equipment. It wasn't right, and I wanted to tell you in person how sorry I am." Lily studied him for a moment. "Are you the one who bought my new swing? It's better than my old one." Richard smiled slightly. "Yes, I did. I wanted to make sure you could keep doing your therapy." "Thank you," Lily said. "I like it a lot." "I brought you something," Richard said, offering her the gift bag. "It's an art therapy set. Some of my patients with cerebral palsy use it, and they say it helps with their fine motor skills." Lily's face lit up as she opened the bag and found a beautiful art set with special adaptive brushes and tools. "Mom, look, can I try it now?" "After dinner," Samantha promised. "Say thank you to Dr. Donovan." "Thank you," Lily said happily. Richard stayed for a short while chatting with Greg and Samantha. He explained that he was taking a leave of absence from the hospital to sort out his personal life. "I've lived in this community for 15 years, he said. "But after everything that's happened, I'm thinking of moving once the divorce is final. Too many memories, and too many people know what Patricia did." "Where will you go?" Samantha asked. "I'm not sure yet. I've been offered a position at a children's hospital in Colorado. It might be good to have a fresh start." Before he left, Richard had one more thing to say. "I've instructed my lawyer to settle your lawsuit on whatever terms you think are fair. I don't want to drag this out in court. Patricia may fight it, but most of our assets are in my name, so I have some leverage." The next week passed quickly. Lily continued to make progress with her new therapy equipment. The media attention died down, and life began to return to normal for the Henderson family. Steve called on Friday with news. "Patricia's lawyer has accepted our counteroffer," he said. "She'll pay for everything, make a donation to the Cerebral Palsy Foundation, and issue a public apology. No non-disclosure agreement." "That's great news," Greg said. "When will this all be finalized?" "We should have the settlement papers next week," Steve told him. "Once everyone signs, it's done." The following Monday, Patricia's public apology appeared in the same newspaper that had first reported the story. It was brief but acknowledged her wrongdoing and expressed regret for her actions. The same day, the Hendersons received the settlement agreement to sign. As they looked through the papers, they noticed something interesting. "Look at this," Samantha said, pointing to a line in the document. It says the donation to the Cerebral Palsy Foundation is $25,000. We only asked for $10,000. Richard must have increased it, Greg guessed. He did say he wanted to settle on whatever terms we thought were fair. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place 2 days later, when Joe Barnes, the new HOA president, called Greg. We've been reviewing our bylaws after everything that happened, Joe explained. The board has voted to create a new committee focused on accommodations for residents with disabilities or special needs. We'd like you to chair it if you're willing. Greg was surprised by the offer. You want me to join the HOA board? We need someone with personal experience to help us do better, Joe said. Your situation with Lily showed us that our policies need to be more compassionate and inclusive. After discussing it with Samantha, Greg accepted the position. His first act as committee chair was to draft new guidelines that clearly protected the rights of families with disabilities. 6 months later, the Hendersons hosted a neighborhood barbecue in their backyard. Lily, now 9 years old, proudly showed her friends how well she could use her swing and balance board. Her therapy was progressing wonderfully, and her doctor was impressed with her improvements. Many neighbors attended the barbecue, including Richard Donovan, who was visiting to pack up the last of his belongings before moving to Colorado. He had finalized his divorce from Patricia, who had moved to another state after the settlement and public apology. "How are you doing?" Samantha asked Richard as they watched Lily playing with the other children. "Better," he said with a small smile. "It's been a difficult time, but seeing Lily doing so well helps." "We heard you're leaving next week," Greg said. Richard nodded. "Yes, it's time for a fresh start. The Children's Hospital in Denver has a great program for kids with cerebral palsy. I'm looking forward to focusing on that work." As the evening went on, Greg raised his glass for a toast. To new beginnings, good neighbors, and a community that stands together. Everyone raised their glasses. Lily, sitting between her parents, looked around at all the people who had helped her family. She didn't understand everything that had happened, but she knew one thing for sure. The mean lady was gone, and she was surrounded by people who cared. For the Henderson family, the difficult chapter with Patricia was finally closed. In its place was a stronger community, new friendships, and the knowledge that standing up for what was right had made a difference not just for them, but for others who might face similar challenges in the future.